Welcome in to another episode of Hockey Royalty Live, the official podcast of HockeyRoyalty.com. We got a doozy for you. We got the Road Warriors setting the record for the NHL record on road wins. We go into New York and battle the Jonathan Quick, and then we get manhandled by Winnipeg. Lots to talk about here in this chat. So get in, like, and subscribe. Let's go. Kings fans, get in there and intro. It's been a rough one, man. I coming in here. Thank you everybody for coming in here, but got the sleeps going on. Waking myself up in my own dream. 5 minutes before I set the alarm for 8:50 a.m., not p.m., and then something else woke me up. So you're lucky if I'm even here, let alone anything else going on. So my brain is just triggering in all aspects. But what I got to say before we get going on here, Russ, Joe, how we doing?
Doing pretty good. Getting through the season. Last few games been a little rough. We'll dive into it, but overall, feeling pretty good. How you doing, Joe?
I'm all right. Yeah, finally feeling better after the debacle that was last week. Holy crap. I thought it was bad the week before when I had that like cough and raspy voice. Nope, that was nothing compared to what happened the following. But that's okay. That was we're good to go. The hockey team picked up another win. We're 4-2 heading into a 2-game weekend. We've got Everton is absolutely buzzing right now, despite the points deduction. So the Premier League can go screw themselves. So other than that, yeah, feeling pretty good. Obviously the Kings, we'll get to them, but the Yankees signed Juan Soto. A lot of good things happening for me out here in Western New York. I'll be honest. Brandon, how you doing?
Daniel Hall saying Randy's feeling lit. I am lit. Just got that post wake up high. I'm all over the place. I'm ready to go. Joe's got the t-shirt going on here. Everybody get your Hockey Royalty t-shirt going on. It's a doozy. It's great. I like what's going on. Man, my head is just still spinning. I have no idea what's going on here. I'm just acting on instinct. Little Spider-Man senses going on here. Don't ever get the AM and PM mixed up. That's what I'm talking about. So let's get into the meat of the potatoes here. Is the 11th overall win, most of any NHL team ever on the road to start the season. How was that game? Obviously, we're playing Montreal. We expected to win that game. Kings are buzzing. Not really much to talk about in the middle of the game at all, but how do you feel about the Kings at that moment of time, Russell?
I mean, you feel pretty good, right? I mean, it feels like a game that you probably should have won going into it. Even with the record behind, and we had talked about how like maybe the Canadians would kind of get up for it, but it certainly seemed like the Kings were just ready to go after their slow start. Columbus, they came back with that comeback victory in the third period, and then come out strong in Montreal. It felt like there's really not a lot to take away from that game, but I mean the highlight was just that Quentin Byfield first goal. I mean, that was pretty much everything we had been waiting for to see. And I know he's been great this season, obviously in the midst of a breakout. Last year, he showed a lot of improvement playing on the line with Kopitar and Kempe. But that goal specifically was pretty much like if you had looked back at scouting reports from this draft, you're talking about speed, you're talking about size, you're talking about skill. That was all that put together right there on that play. Driving to the net. So that was something that I almost got out of my seat to see. So that was my biggest takeaway from the win.
I like that you mentioned that because when I saw that goal, I was like, exactly as you said, like he's been really good now going back to, last year since he moved to the wing. Then the points have started to come much more this year and things are all starting to click and it's been great. But that goal felt different. Like something about that goal, the way it happened, the way he did it, he went outside, cuts over it, like just everything about that goal felt just a little bit different. It was like, okay, there's Quentin Byfield that's a glimpse of what we can see. But yeah, I mean, that was a game where the Kings you expect them to win the game. They went in, they did a job. they outshot. I think it was 16-4 in the third period. The Kings did. That's what you're looking for. Just strangle them to death at the end of the game. They were the much better team throughout, and so at the end of the day, that was a game. I don't think the record. I'll be honest. I don't care all that much about the record. It's one of those fluky things where they just happen to start the season on an 11-game road win streak. It's kind of like one of those funky things. Could have happened at any point in the season. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's cool, I guess, and obviously it's great that they won 11 straight road games because they picked up a bunch of points at the start of the season. So I'm not going to go too crazy about the record per se, but it is cool anyways to get off to a good start. But I'm with Russ. Not a ton to take away. I thought that was two teams, one significantly better than the other, and they played as such, and they did a job.
I will disagree. I think it was a big. I think it was a big thing here, and the fact that you talk about Russ, that goal. I mean, the Kings and fandom are always grasping for anything that latches them on to why they're fans. And that game was 11 games. Byfield makes a huge move. Everybody's wondering still about Byfield. When are they going to get going? And he makes that huge move. Hey, I'm here. And they go against a team who is, I believe, number one in cups, right? Montreal Canadiens. I think they're going overall. Sure. Yeah, in cups. So to do that in a barn that is historic as Montreal, to do it as in the fashion that they did, I think that it was a big deal. I mean, obviously, if we had this podcast 3 days ago, you and I, all of us would be buzzing, right? Like it wouldn't be, hey, the downtrodden eight, it is what it is. The publicity type answers that you're giving. I mean, we would be kind of buzzing in that aspect because the fact.
No,
what? No,
it's cool. Like Montreal's on the schedule. Like if I was expecting heading into that road trip, I was like, Columbus is going to be tricky. Homestand on the road, first road game. Sometimes that's, getting your bearings and stuff. So Columbus, if there was a game that they lose, maybe that one, fully expecting to win in Montreal. Like, I don't care so much about how many games they've won in a row. It's like, I go into this game in Montreal, the Kings are a better team, go win the game. And they did it. And they did it in pretty convincing fashion, I would say. So I would look at that as, okay, now we got ourselves some tests coming into the weekend in New York City. So, I mean, I'm a little downplaying it from a few days back, Randon, I guess maybe, but I don't know. When I watch the games, like, okay, this is exactly what was supposed to happen. This is what we're supposed to do.
Such a coach answer, one game at a time. But I was going to say that the great thing about that goal with Byfield, and I think that's pretty much the highlight of that game, was that the player that he did that on was Caden Gooley, who was his teammate at the World Junior Championships on Canada. And Caden Gooley was, at that time, was considered like, there was so much hype about him, and he was like one of the best defenders on that team. And Quentin Byfield was considered like he was the youngest player on that team at the time, and he was still kind of considered to be like growing into the type of player he is. So now we've almost seen it like come full circle, where now all of a sudden you see Quentin Byfield making those type of moves against a player like Gooley, who was considered to be a great prospect at that time. But yeah, I'm kind of with Joe, kind of with Randon, where I think I agree, Randon. Like 3 days ago, we'd be all hype and buzzing about the win and the win streak. But at the same time, like I kind of get it. It's like the Canadians, like if it was against like the Oilers or something like that, maybe there'd be a little bit more emphasis on the win.
Sure.
So like maybe I think the opponent kind of brings it down a little bit, but we should be kind of excited about the record.
You know what? The most exciting thing about that game was obviously Trevor Moore tallying his 13th goal of the season. One more on the way to 30.
I mean, Byfield had 2 goals, 3 points. Like that's a big thing. I mean, and I know that you're wearing the shirt for a reason. Like I get it. But was Trevor Moore drafted second overall? No, he wasn't. Like that's what this team is ready for. They want the expectations from the superstar, and rightfully so. Byfield is coming into his own, and he's playing a great season. We are having a birth of him as a budding superstar in this league, and that's not hyperbole. That's a real thing that's going on. And if it wasn't for the last Drotny of the last couple of games, that's all we would be singing his praises on. That's what this would be going on. So I don't want to flatten that at all. I don't want to flatten that at all. And obviously, you see, if you're watching live here on YouTube, our shirts. Joe's got the shirts going off of the Trevor Moore, and obviously he is a great story, and I will eat my crow eternally for not having him hyped up this season. But I don't want to not pump up Byfield's tires based on what is going on in the last couple of games, because what he did in that game, that was an elite move. That was a superstar style goal, and he had a game at the opportune time for the Kings to clinch that NHL record.
Can I be clear? I'm all here for the buzz about Byfield that game. The 2 goals, the great move, the power play goal, all about it. I'm looking for my whole thing here is more about the win itself as a team is like, yeah, supposed to on to the next one. But then when you look at the individual players in the game, yeah, I totally agree. That's huge for Byfield. That's great for him. Talbot with the shutout, Moore with another goal. So there's some of that stuff is great. I don't want to downplay what Byfield did either, Randy. I don't mean to do that. But just in general as a win, it's a game the team should win. So
let's get into what we were talking about, Russ. I mean, we expected this as Joseph. We expected the win, and we did. But it was in a dominant fashion. Great Kings win against Montreal. Obviously went to the Islanders, and that was kind of ho-hum. But the game that we were talking about coming up is against the New York Rangers, top in the East versus top in the West, in their barn. A big statement game for the Kings against a Hall of Famer, and the Kings come up short. What were you thinking going into that game? How do you think the Kings fared? Was it just big versus big and they dominated? How did you feel watching that game going on in New York?
It's tough because I don't want to use the excuse of the road trip back to back, but it certainly kind of felt that way. I mean, you watched the Kings and it just didn't seem like they were really emotionally invested into the game, or just maybe mentally tired from the road trip. And you play kind of a tough game the night before against the Islanders. I didn't really watch that game, but it just seemed like there was a lot of, you gave up a 2-goal lead, you lose in overtime. There's a lot of like weird things going on with that game. And obviously the injury to Gavrikov, which I think it played a huge part in the last few games probably. I mean, the game against the Rangers, him leaving in the first period really just kind of threw a wrench into everything that probably McClellan wanted to run out there, especially being at the end of a back-to-back. You only have 5 defensemen to run with the whole game. That's pretty tough. And then obviously the officiating in that game was kind of, I wouldn't say questionable. I mean, some of the misconducts that they were handing out, it just felt like what are we doing here? And that slash on Byfield to Quick, I don't know. It just felt like that referee just kind of like took over a game that didn't need to, just let it play. I understand there's a little bit maybe of infraction, maybe by the book. There's some of the calls that should have been made, but they were more or less borderline. I think it took a lot of the momentum and energy out of the game from both teams, and the Kings just really couldn't get back into it after that.
I would agree with you, Russ. I think the fact that the whistles really kind of, stop and go the type of game that we were playing. I think we did get outmanned, outhandled. And Joe, I want to ask you this. I mean, this is the first big test on a big run from the Kings to play with a juggernaut that would be in the cup momentum or the cup swing for the Kings. Do you think they were up to the task outside of the whistles?
And Russ alluded to it, and I think I had tweeted it the week before. The Kings beat a Colorado team, second of a back-to-back and 4th game in 6 nights. And Todd McClellan said, it's tough playing 4 and 6 in this league. And you know what, from a gambling aspect, that's something that a lot of gamblers look at when their teams are playing 4th and 6 nights. And they do that for a reason. It's just not easy. It was 4th and 6 nights, 5th and 8 nights, back-to-back. And as Russ alluded to, they did play a tough game against the Islanders. Kind of a letdown game, obviously, after blowing the lead. Brandon, I had that game kind of circled as like, it sucks that this game is being played in this schedule scenario because we're not going to see the best Kings. Maybe it sounds like a cop out, but that was like a schedule loss, if you will. Like that wasn't a game. If I really wanted the Islanders game because I didn't think the Kings would win that game on Sunday in the Garden, just with the entire schedule situation, to be honest with you. I don't take anything of that in a situation or a scenario of like the Kings can't hang with the Rangers. It's not where I'm at with this. They certainly didn't that night. The Rangers were the better team. They deserved to win the game. But
let me flip it to you on this. You thought that they should have beat the Islanders. Was the overtime loss to the Islanders a bigger indication of this team, or do you think it was just a lot of games in a time span? Does that invalidate the domination of Colorado? Like, where are you with this team?
First of all, the Colorado thing, I wasn't as in on with everybody else for the sake of what Todd McClellan said after the game. Colorado's playing 4-6 back-to-back. They didn't have Makar. So to be on our high horse because we beat a banged-up and tired Colorado team, I think is irresponsible. I was happy we won. Don't get me wrong. It's still a good win. But let's be clear, that wasn't exactly Colorado's A team, just like it wasn't the Kings' A team on Sunday. The Islanders game is disappointing because they had the 2-goal lead, and I know we'll talk about last night, but that's now two of the last 3 games the Kings have let 2-goal leads go away. That's you don't like to see that, especially in the third period. And on kind of situations where. And credit to Sorokin. I thought Sorokin made some good saves. I thought he played pretty well. But yeah, I wanted the Islanders game just because I knew that Sunday game in the Garden was going to be tough for a lot of reasons. So not getting that extra point I was bummed about that. It was a good point on the road. And so to start the road trip 2-0-1, that ain't bad when you have 4. So even ending at 2-1-1 is looking at the road trip as a whole. That's not a bad road trip. So, it sucks to blow that 2-goal lead on the Island. Really, I'm much more concerned about letting that extra point slip away than the 0 against the Rangers because tough spot, tough team, tough opponent. I don't know if they play each other again or if they already played. I don't remember if they've played in LA yet, but the scenario will be a different story next time, I'm sure.
So Russ, I want to frame this next question to you because after what Joe just said, are the games in New York indication of what we just saw against Winnipeg, or were you not feeling as optimistic after the Montreal game? Knowing that we have to go back and back on the road, 3-5 or whatever that was at that time, or 3-4. Were you feeling a 1-1 type scenario, or were you on the buzz, or how are you feeling about this team outside of what we just saw in Winnipeg?
I thought the Islanders game was winnable. It certainly seemed like it should have been going into after the 2-0 lead. So, I mean, I'm with Joe. Like, it's just like the Rangers game just felt like a scheduled loss, especially after you play out an extended game going into overtime on the island. So, the Islanders game certainly feels like a little bit more of a disappointment. And then the Rangers game, I'm just not really putting too much into it. Everything we talked about it already. End of a road trip, back to back. And then Jonathan Quick, he had that circled, obviously. So,
and credit to him, he played great.
Yeah.
He played a really good game, which is good to see because as a Kings fan and a Quick guy, like you hate to see him go down the way he did last season. I know he won the cup, but like just performance. So it's really good to see him playing this well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like, can we get past all these revenge games already? Like, it just seems like it's going against.
Well, not because we're gonna talk about one in a second.
We have to talk about the next one. So, I mean, yeah, the Rangers game just felt like a scheduled loss. So I'm not putting too much into that road trip. It's a good road trip, 2-1-1.
Not bad.
Can't complain. So I'm happy with it.
I just think it's one that let's play crystal ball here. If the Kings win in New York and then win in Winnipeg, we're talking about juggernauts. We're talking about the hyperbole, and the nationwide media is talking about juggernauts of the season. Kings are that. We're winning on all cylinders. So I'm not saying I want to say, hey, we understand, but there was an opportunity here for the Kings to make a move. Hey, in New York, it was an opportunity. Hey, we're road warriors that we just did. We're going to continue doing that. In Winnipeg is, hey, we can win despite injury. So are the Kings just good because Gavrikov is great, or are the Kings just good because they're a shutdown team when they need to be, or are they just winning early in the season and they're not built for the long term? I think there's a lot of voices going on here, and we'll talk about the Voldemort of the locker room, which is PLD, or the fan base PLD going forward. But what I'm saying in these games, there was a lot of nationwide or hockey-wide storylines that could have been written if the Kings just won some hockey games, and they didn't. So now is there a chink in the armor, Russ?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you still got the second best winning percentage in the Western Conference, besides Vegas, and you lost against two really good teams. The Islanders are also playing really good hockey of late, so you have to give them some credit. Like, these last three games have been really good. But Winnipeg's been playing really well, and the Rangers obviously have been playing well. So, like, I don't think this really kind of understates a lot of the good that the Kings have done so far this season. 16-6-4. That's still a great record. I mean, look at what Edmonton's won, like, 8 games in a row, and there's barely a game over 500. So I think this more or less is just kind of like a speed bump in the season. Like, I don't think this team has gotten any worse. I feel like they're still a good team. The Gavrikov injury is definitely something that's going to impact this team going forward, and we'll see how they kind of get around it. But I still think they're one of the better teams in the Western Conference, probably in the NHL. I mean, they've just been playing really good teams. And now that you have teams like Seattle and San Jose, like, coming up on the schedule, I think hopefully we'll see those wins start to pick up again. And then maybe we'll get that momentum of feeling that emotional high.
2 weeks ago, we were talking on this show about, I don't remember which one asked the question about it, is the Kings Cup contenders. And we talked about them, and they were starting to gain a lot of that national media attention. I know everybody, Kings Twitter was very happy when Dom had them, number 1 in his rankings, or 2 or whatever it was. So they were starting to be real good, if you will. A couple losses doesn't change that in the slightest. Like, it happens. I mean, every team goes through a stretch where they lose a couple games in a row. They lose 3 or 4, whatever it is. Like, you go back to the drawing board, you look at video and you get it fixed, and you come back the next day, and it's a couple games. Like, if this were to extend out into like an 8-game skid, or you lose 12 of 14, then you got yourselves a problem. But a couple games here, this is not a big deal.
I just think it's something to look at, and I think your big teams are built on big moments, and I understand that it's December, but those are marquee type matchups that they should win sometimes. Like, they didn't win any of them, so we're going to talk about the Winnipeg game, but they didn't win any of them. Like, we expected them to beat Montreal, and they didn't win any of the rest of them. Like, those are big games, and if they were to lose 1 out of the 3, or even play well in 1 out of the 3, I would agree with you. I thought that they haven't played well in the last 3 games, and we'll get into that. And speaking of playing well and not playing well, we're going to get into our sponsor here at DraftKings. When you're betting, you better play well, or you're going to lose some money. And betting the action with DraftKings Sportsbook here. And tomorrow we got some huge games: Ducks Rangers plus 1.5, minus 1.5. You think the Rangers are going to win by more than 1.5 goals? Hey, bet that odds. You're going to get negative 115 betting odds there, puck line, or over under 6 goals. We have over under on the Bruins game versus the Islanders, 5.5. So there's a lot of star quality games going on tomorrow, not next week, tomorrow, if you want to bet some of those at DraftKings. So get in the app right now. Download the app now at DraftKings. Use the code THPN. New customers get $150 instantly in bonus bets for betting just $5 on hockey. That's code THPN only at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NHL. The crown is yours when you're making some winning bets. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after the issuance. So go in the app now, get your bets going on, make some money on hockey. If you think you're better than the odds, bet that down. Throw some money down there. $5 gets you $150 in free bets. So why not? So get in there at DraftKings Sportsbook, draft code THPN. Get your money right now. So let's get into the injuries here. Obviously, the Kings are down 1 dancing queen with Gavrikov. The locker room hero here. but big on the 1-3-1, big on what he's added to the team in not only scoring, but just being that juggernaut on defense. That second pairing has been staunch when it comes to giving up goals. So, Joe, what do you think of? Obviously, Mervar is your boy, but what do you think of that pairing with Roy? And then is Gavrikov the reason? Is Gavrikov the necessity or the ingredient, if you will?
I don't think the fact that he, is the reason. His absence is the reason they lost to Winnipeg. I don't think him coming out of the game is the reason that they lost to the Rangers. Obviously, it doesn't help. He's been a really good addition since he came over, and he's had a strong start to the season yet again. But no, I think if your team is good enough and your structure is good enough, then you're able to miss a guy. You can lose a player and still be fine. And I think the Kings are capable of doing that. Like I heard Todd McClellan say he thought maybe Mo Verhaere is one of the better defensemen in the game last night. Not sure I go that far, but I don't think Mo Verhaere was bad by any means. And then again, I don't know that it was if the Kings are going to win that game if Gavrikov's in the lineup. So it's a loss. You don't want this to be too long term. I'd say week to week, I think is what they said, Russ. So we'll see how this goes. It's the Kings.
Which made based on Tom McClellan's, it could be year to year based
we
on
don't
the
know.
Kings.
We may never see Gavrikov again. It's with the way they do. Lord knows, or he'll be back tomorrow. Who knows? It's impossible to figure out what it is that they're trying to tell us. Listen, there's just no questions. It's a loss. It's a big loss, but every team does it. You got to have the guys to fill in. Everybody knows I'm a Mo Verhaere fan, so this is a good opportunity for him. We'll see if it continues. And again, I don't think he looked too bad last night.
I think this is a bigger loss than a lot of people are probably making it out to be. I think if you're looking at the Kings' organizational depth as a whole, center, they're pretty good. Wing, they're pretty good. Right shot D, very good. Left shot defenseman, probably the weakest in the organization, right?
That's
you have
fair.
Mikey Anderson, Andreas Englund, Tobias Bjornfoot, and Jacob Verhaere. Rawr. I don't know. I'm still getting used to that name, but I love it. I'm starting to pick up on it. But anyway, man, I don't know. I feel like I'm watching that game last night, and I'm a big fan of Jacob. I think he's a great seventh defenseman in this league and a player that can step in and fill a role if needed. The fact that he has to step in and play probably top 4 minutes now, I think you're asking a lot. I think you're asking probably too much now, because there were times last night where I saw Andreas Englund out there with Matt Roy in certain opportunities, certain situations where maybe a little bit more important situation, maybe penalty kills, big matchups, and they kind of got exposed a little bit. I know the first period was pretty good for that pair with Mo Verhaere and Roy, but I mean later on in the game looked pretty rough. So, like I mentioned, you have a little bit of an easier.
Did it not look rough for everybody?
Yeah, they did, and they did. I mean, but you could say maybe that was because of the players that were on the ice and defense.
If you cut the first period by itself, everybody was buzzing. Hey, Mervara, was jumping into action. Mervara was doing this. Hey, he's 11 versus 1 on shot attempts, like all this kind of stuff. Like, is it really him, or are we going to talk about a player going forward for the next hour on what this really is about? Is it really Mervara? Like, are we missing Gavrikov that much, or am I understating the loss?
Well, I mean, you just look at the numbers, and I know maybe it's tied to the King system and the team being successful as a whole. Gavrikov, top 5 in expected goal share, top 5 in shot share, top 5 in shot attempt share. He's got the metrics to point to him being a really good defenseman on this team and in the NHL. So to have that loss, I mean, we're talking about a small sample size, obviously, of one game with Jake Mervar, but I feel like it's going to be a big loss if this It's hard to say. Like I just mentioned, it's a small sample size, so we'll see how it goes. But these next few games will give us a better indication, I feel like, of how this team can perform with the loss of Gavrikov.
That's where I'm at. I'm not really concerned about this right now because it doesn't sound like this is going to be a thing that's going to keep Gavrikov out, months or anything like that. So if it's week to week, I'd like to see Moverari get a couple of games here before I make a determination because you threw him in first game. The first period was great, and then the second period was just a sloppy period from across the board. Frankly, I just didn't like a lot of it, and Moverari included. And I think the loss is big. It is. It's just I don't think it's big enough to where it should cause them to go on any sort of losing streak. Right. I mean, I don't think the loss of Gavrikov doesn't take them from, big favorites against Seattle to a coin flip. It's the type of thing. Like there should be, I would think, big favorites against Seattle. Like the loss is not nothing. It's just, I think the team, I think the structure is good enough to withstand it. And it is a lot to ask for Moverari to play top 4 minutes. That there's no question, because as much as I like him, I think he can be a really good Andreas Englund type in that bottom pair. And I think he could do just fine there. Asking him to play top 4 is a big ask. I totally agree with that. In a short stint, I'm still willing to see it out though. So at the moment, not really concerned, just because I think given the structure of the team that they're going to be able to get through it.
Well, we're talking about obviously week to week injury, and given the past kind of references to these injury durations to the Kings, it seems like it could be a little bit longer. We just don't know, obviously.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if we're talking probably a month, maybe 2 months, like I'll ask you guys, do you see a possibility of maybe having to get it like outside trade, like look at maybe making a trade here?
They don't have the cap space for a trade, Russ. Like they don't. So
yeah, I mean, if he's out that long, you can LTIR him and then create a little bit more space there.
But then
we're talking week to week, and LTIR is only 10 days and 7 games, right?
But he comes back he's going to come back before the playoffs. So then you have to figure out a way to maneuver him in. I mean, you're looking at in a week to week. Let's look at the schedule real quick. Like let's just look at what the Kings got going on. So week to week, if 2 weeks, that's 6 games. Total of 12 points in the next week coming up, right? So, 6 games plus 1, so 7 games.
All divisional opponents too. That's the tough part.
All divisional opponents. Are we really like throwing the button up in the air? I mean, I guess we're gonna have to wait and see how the teams perform. But I don't think you go out and make a move, because if you're making that move for lefty, that means when Gavrikov comes back, that means Englund isn't there and he's been playing well. And is that a move you want to make, or is the move that we talked about in the previous podcast, is that move Victor Arvidsson versus another that is getting added to a player that we're going to talk about later by the name of 3 initials PLD? Is that where we're going on this, to the addition by subtraction or the addition by addition, I guess, with players coming off injury? I just don't think it's going to be an issue. And I view Moverari as, and a lot of people won't like this, especially the way he's viewed about on Twitter. He's Jerry Anderson Dolan. I think he play third line or third pairing. I think he plays second pairing. I think he play first pairing if he's needed to be. He's solid at what he does is playing defense. And I get it. You might not get much offense out of him. He's never scored a goal. He's not going to do those kind of things, but he's not going to miss an assignment. And I don't think he was blown apart. You look at a couple of games or a couple of moves the other night. Ehlers decimated Mikey Anderson, with speed. And Mikey Anderson's supposed to be this great skater and all this kind of stuff like that. He decimated him. I didn't see one clip of Jacob Moverari just being totally manhandled. And I might have missed that because the fact that I was trying to get my internet to work last night, but he wasn't exceptional, but he wasn't the reason that the team lost last night.
He did get kind of manhandled by Villardi in front on the I think it was the third goal a little bit, but I mean, Villardi was just kind of all over the ice. But Joe, I'll let you kind of respond to my question.
About the trade? No, I don't. Because I think I'm with Brandon. Like, if there's a trade, then that really does hint that there's a problem here. Like, he's not out week to week; he's out month to month, and then some. Because, yeah, I mean, what are you trading for, and what do you do if it's truly week to week? What do you do if he's out a month? What do you do when he gets back? Who's this player you acquired, and where is he going? So it creates a little bit of a jam. I think, again, if Gavrikov is out like month to month, then you have to have a serious conversation. But that's not at least what's being reported right now. So I think you got to sit tight on this, and you got to go with your depth that you do have, which right now is Moverari, Bjornfoot, and we'll see what else comes of it. I think they have to. That's the route right now, and it's a tough spot because this is tough no matter whether it's Moverari, whether it's Englund, whether it's Bjornfoot or somebody else. To ask any of them to play a top 4 role right now is a difficult ask. Fully agree.
How about this? I'll float this one out to you guys. Do you look at transitioning a right shot defenseman to the left side?
Yeah, you know my answer there. Yes, and bring up Clark. Obviously, the answer is very clearly yes there. But I don't think that's
so I would probably go that way before moving to making a trade. So I could see that probably being the last desperate move that Rob Blake or McClellan would make before trying to make any sort of acquisition. It's just I feel like you'd be asking a lot of who I feel like would probably be the person is Jordan Spence moving to the left side, even though he's kind of done it at certain points. He did it last night at the later part of the game playing with Drew Doughty.
Mm-hmm.
He's a great skater. I feel like he could probably do it, but I don't know. I feel like he's been playing so well. Last night game, I didn't think it was that great for Spencer or Englund or pretty much anybody. So,
yeah.
But I feel like you're asking quite a bit. It seems like that could be the reason to get help out with the situation.
I mean, if you want to pull my arm there, Russ, and bring up the point per game player, is this really day for day? Is this really week for week? Is this month for month? The Kings don't really know. Or they know, but we don't know on that aspect. I think that if it's a real loss, what you're talking about, Russ, I'd rather bring up Brant Clark and just let him roll.
Okay.
That's if you're talking about a real loss within the team. One, they don't have the money, because if Gavrikov's going to be back before playoffs, then they're going to have to do this Mark Stone. Oh, he's healthy, but not really healthy for a month, and all this kind of stuff like that. Which, if they can do, great. I really don't care how we get to the cup as long as we get to the cup. But I don't think that's the way that Gavrikov's injury is. I think it's probably he's good by January 1st. So realistically, should we see Brant Clark? Probably not, because I think that Bjornfoot and Rivara can patch it up before then.
I would agree. And this is maybe a different, and if my memory is wrong, please correct me and we can, forget about it. But how many times have it feels like more often than it should. Like, I think it happened with Iafallo last year. I want to say it happened with maybe Lizotte, maybe Villardi. And again, stop me if I'm wrong when I do actually say it. It happened here with Gavrikov, where the player comes back, he's hurt, he leaves the game, he comes back, he maybe misses a game, comes back, and then he's out an extended period of time. I feel like that happened a couple of times last year with guys. And I mean, I know you're trusting the medical staff, but that's kind of consistent where he leaves a game, he misses a game or two, he comes back, and then all of a sudden he's out for weeks. And I don't know, it's just bizarre. That whole situation is a little bizarre to me, I guess.
The fact that they played him again on a back-to-back after he had left the game kind of was like, I was surprised he was playing. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
Were they even caring? I don't know if they were caring.
It happened with Fiala. Russ, you and I met in LA, and Fiala was coming back that game.
Right, Fiala.
And you and I were talking about over beers. We're like, hey, Fiala's coming back. He should be good. And then he was okay that game, and then he wasn't okay, and then left. Like, that's
really
I don't know.
That's it is. I mean, obviously, listen, we're not there, so obviously you trust that they've got. I'm sure, and that's a good question, Russ. I don't know. Maybe they genuinely may not have been carrying. I don't know. They may not have had Bjornfoot with them. I don't think they did.
Was with them.
No, I don't think either of them were.
I know Bjornfoot wasn't with them. So
no, I think they only had the 6. So
interesting.
Yeah.
It's kind of a gamble, right? You go into a back-to-back with only 6 defensemen.
It's the situation they're in, right?
I think it's something to look at, and obviously Gavrikov has been excellent, not only on the ice but in the locker room. Like, he's just been that linchpin on the defense that you need, and had that big interview with the NHL, and he's getting pub everywhere you look at it, and I just think that Mavrari can do that job, and Bjornfoot probably will get a start here now that he's healthy and that his conditioning stint is over with. He'll probably get a start or play in the next couple of days. I don't think it's that huge. I think it's something that the Kings need to monitor, like how they're going on. But you can't, like, right now, according to what the Kings are saying, Gavrikovs will be ready by the playoffs. And that's a long way around.
You better be January.
No, I'm saying, but like, it's not an LTIR move, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
LTIR is only 10 days. It's not that long. So, not that they need to do it. I'm just saying, like, it's not like.
I'm not saying it's a contract move where you were saying, hey, go out and get somebody and use this contract. That's what I'm saying. Another injury coming out is podcast favorite and Kyle Garcia favorite. Alex Turcott gets an uncouth elbow to the dome. And a lot of people are, he's just injury prone. A lot of people are saying, hey, he should have been called up when Kaliev got his games. Bjornfoot, or not Bjornfoot, but Lizotte was out. Like, he should have been that person. He was over a point per game player. We'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Alex Turcott and the season that he had, and just another concussion. Kings are saying he's out indefinitely right now. So what's your thought on Alex Turcott? Obviously, as a player, was making it known on the ice. It just seems another unfortunate incident after another unfortunate incident.
Yeah, and real quick, I appreciate Lieb correcting me for the LTIR. It's 10 games, not 10 days. So it's 24 days is what it is. So still kind of whatever. But with Turcott, man, it just seems like one unlucky hit after another with this guy. And I understand, like, the want to see a player like that in the NHL, but, like, who's to say that this wouldn't happen in an AHL game? You're just it's kind of the same thing, right? It's like, just because he's playing in the AHL doesn't mean he's more likely to get hurt down there as opposed to playing in the NHL. He's going to get hurt up here. So, at the time when Kaliev was out, I don't know. I didn't feel like the need to call up Turcott. I know a lot of people aren't really happy with what Jared Anderson-Dolan has brought so far, but they were winning games. So it's not like he was hurting the team in terms of losses in or in the win-loss column. So I thought he was doing well. And Joe's mentioned a couple of times, he's the perfect 13th forward. You can just slide in, play him wherever. And with Turcott, he was playing so well in the AHL, you just wanted to see that momentum going. And now, unfortunately, that momentum just come to a screeching halt. So it's tough, man. You want to feel so good about the player, about him starting the season well, and then all of a sudden it just comes to this again. It's like you don't even really feel surprised anymore. That's the thing that sucks so much. It's like, man, another Turcott injury. Like, here we go again. And I want to stop having that feeling with this player. It's a 5th overall pick. You want to see something. It's been 4 years since the Kings drafted him. We haven't even seen him score a point in the NHL at this point. So, at this point, I consider if Turcott plays a game, it's a bonus to me at this point in the season, because I'm not even expecting him to play with the Kings this year. I'm barring any time of injuries to some centerman and he comes back healthy. But at this point, with everything that's gone on in his career to start and the season to start this year, you just kind of hope that everything goes well in his health.
It's a gut punch. I felt really excited, happy for him to be healthy and starting the season as well as he did. And just, it sucks. It really, really sucks. I don't really have a whole lot to add to that. I feel really bad for the kid because he's been through a lot. And again, he's put a really nice start to the season here. And, it seemed like he was, if there was some sort of extended injury to a forward, that he would have been the one to get the call. And it's really, really unfortunate. So hopefully he's able to recover from this, and it sucks.
From a player standpoint, this is his last year on his entry-level contract. So to get another contract or where that goes, is it AHL only? all this kind of stuff, it's probably going to come from the Kings. If it comes from anybody, I think it's just tough for him. And you got to wonder, he's having the conversations with medical staff, multiple concussions in the last couple of years. Is this the end of his playing career? Is this how it ends? And those are conversations that I couldn't even fathom happening. And those are the conversations he's having with his family. And so here at Hockey Royalty, we wish him the best. We wish him that he gets healthy, that it's no huge damage. But I was rooting for him. I thought when Lizotte went down, I want him to come up over Jared Anderson-Dolan to get that offer. I know it's everybody's like, oh, it's 8. No, I mean, Lizotte was playing 12 minutes a night. That's a lot on a team. He could have played high penalty kill minutes. I thought he could have had a chance if they would have brought him up. Now, I don't think the Kings thought that Lizotte was out 5 games. I thought they probably thought he was day-to-day, which is what they said. But I think that you look at in hindsight, if they would have went back and called up Turcott, he probably could have made some huge differences in those games instead of Lewis at center. Like, I mean, the driving play that Turcott has shown in the AHL, I think he could have done the same. And it's just a shame. I think he's a great player. Is he the top line player that they drafted him to be? Probably not, but he could have been. I think he has the skill set to be a Trevor Moore or those types of guys where their nuances, their play drivers, their that kind of thing. If you find a shot, maybe he's that bold 30 goal prediction that Joe's making 2 years from now. So it's just sad. I think it's just sad that a guy that talented may never see the ice in the NHL and may never get a point and realize his dream of being a legit player. And we wish the best for Alex Turcott.
Yeah, he's looked good this year too with the rain. Hope he comes back healthy. We'll see. Long season.
So we're at 47 minutes here. We got another hour and a half of PLD talk here. So let's start it out with the revenge game. Last night, the Kings started off well, 2 goals in the first. Switch it over to the Winnipeg broadcast, and then you guys could blame me then, I guess. And then the things turned on a swivel in the second period and the third period to the Villardi revenge game here. Let's just start with Villardi here. I guess let's start with Villardi and the fact that he had a great game. I mean, that first line dominated the Kings. They were apparent all game long, even in the first when they weren't like putting it on the score sheet, but just nonstop speed, nonstop taking it from the edge, bringing it to the crease. They were not only taking pucks at any part they could to the net, but they were driving play nonstop. Joe, it looked like a confident Winnipeg team, especially from the first line.
Yeah. Ehlers had a chance. I think it was the first period too, where he caught a break along the left wing and it either went wide or maybe skimmed the post. It was like he was moving. And yeah, the King after they get up to 2-0 and the second period just seemed to really get like sloppy. Nothing was crisp. They couldn't string a lot together. They couldn't get sustained pressure. And as far as Gabe Villardi, couldn't be happier. I was a big Gabe Villardi fan. Loved his game in Ontario when he went to wing, and you could tell he was unhappy about the way things ended in Los Angeles. So for him personally, it sucks as a Kings fan, but happy for him because he's another guy that the Kings have had. He had struggles with health. Finally, sort of had. No, he didn't really have a healthy season last year. He missed time last year. Missed time this year. But when he's on the ice, he's going to be a productive player, and I'm happy for him because I like Gabe Villardi. I think he's a really good player. He's a good talent. So,
excuse my language here, but it was a big fuck you to the Kings.
Sure,
he came in and played well,
and good for him. And yeah, and that line was really good. I mean, they're a little banged up. I know Kapari's out, Kyle Connor's out, so they've got some guys that are out. So it's a new. I want to say it's a new line for them, a relatively new line for them. And when Ehlers is going, he's a tough player to handle. As you saw, he's got a ton of speed going down the wing. So Yeah, that was a tough line to handle, and the Kings struggled with it, particularly in the second period. And I think the disappointing part was just the kind of the lack of pushback from the Kings. We've talked about often throughout the season about there's just no lead is too big, that they can always come back. They're always going to be in the game. And they, Winnipeg did to the Kings what the Kings generally do. At 5-on-5 in the third period, they had one shot on goal. They just didn't really do a good job of getting anything going in the third period. And credit to Winnipeg. They were able to shut the door.
Yeah, Rick Bowness really has that team kind of flowing right now. I think it's now 18 straight games that they've only given up 3 goals or less. So, they're a very solid defensive team. And when you have the backstop like Connor Hellebuck back there too, that's certainly going to help. So I think a lot of focus is on Gabe Villardi, and rightfully so, especially with everything that's gone on around this game. But, hats off to Nikolai Ehlers. Man, those shots that he had, those are probably some of the best shots I've seen live
Laser beams.
So far. That one where he was cut across the middle and then shot it on the backside, whatever. Laser beam. And the one streaking down the left side, same thing. I feel like Ehlers is probably one of the more underappreciated wingers in the NHL. That guy, he's got good speed, obviously got a good shot. Once he gets going, it's a great player. And then Scheifele had a really good game too. So that line all together, I thought they kind of, I'm sure like Villardi definitely had a chip on his shoulder with that, but I'm sure the entire team did too, especially with the way that the Kings went into Winnipeg and won. It's just like a repeat of Philadelphia, right? Like the Kings went into Philadelphia, just blew the brakes off, just shelled Cal Peterson, and then Cal Peterson comes back and gets a win in LA. It's the same thing. Kings go into Winnipeg, PL has a good game, come back to LA, and then Winnipeg just kind of blows the doors off. So you got to give your hats off to the way Winnipeg played all together, the team as a whole. Not just Gabe Villardi, because I thought Villardi had a really good game and there's all the emotion tied to it. But, that top line, the Kings just really had no answer. And it certainly feels like it seems like the last couple games, or especially like the Islanders game and this last one too, I feel like teams are now putting a lot more pressure up ice on the Kings, preventing a lot of breakouts and a lot of kind of rush chances that the Kings are usually are able to generate throughout a game. Just feels like that wasn't really there last night. The breakouts were just constantly being stopped, happening cleanly for the Kings, and Winnipeg just had a good strategy to prevent those from happening. So I'll be interesting to see how the Kings and how other teams kind of strategize against the Kings going forward.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when we talk about this team and the punch chances there, and you want that scoring to come from depth, and it didn't really happen this last game. And Trapper coming here with $5 for Villardi, to make up for the $8.5 million that PLD is getting, because that's what fans are wanting to hear. Like, hey, Pierre-Luc Dubois, are you going to earn this $8.5 million or what? Like, what's going on here? And Villardi's throwing $5 for Villardi his way. Obviously, big revenge game. 4 points. He did what he did. Pierre-Luc Dubois is not there. Fans are turning on him, and he's the scapegoat for this game. And obviously, recency bias plays into that. There's a lot of fans are saying, hey, the zone entries and slot passes aren't enough to make me want PLD anymore. Before we get into the debacle that is PLD, I want to make sure we get pub to Villardi. Villardi got a lot of heat from Kings fans with his comments that Kings aren't or LA isn't a hockey town and all this kind of stuff like that, and his comments on Lizotte. In the sports world, that's going to be coming. If Villardi doesn't play well, he's going to hear from Kings fans. He's going to come in to the next day with a bunch of mentions in his inbox about how he didn't play well, and he came to the table. That whole first line, he had what, 4 points, 3 apples and a goal, a great goal, top notch for him, and that's what we thought he could. That's what he showed. I know it's his first 4-point game, but that's what he showed with the Kings, that he could dominate a game when he wanted to, you got to give stick taps to Gabriel Villardi.
100%. I think we're all Gabe Villardi fans here. I mean, and nothing about the trade had anything to do with not liking Gabe Villardi as a player. Didn't think he was any good or anything like that. So yeah, I have zero ill will toward Gabe Villardi. I watched his post game press conference. Good for him. And I know he rubbed some people the wrong way. I think his LA comments were taken way out of context. The ones from a couple months ago, I don't think he meant anything in the slightest by that. People seem to be really bent out of shape about the Lizotte comments. It's his opinion. He was the one that was on the ice. He was the one that got tangled up. I don't know. We don't have to agree with it. Like he said, it's his opinion. I'm not going to kill him for it. And he came out and played a really good game. So, and not for nothing, the team traded him. So there's.
I will say it's like interesting though. Like you watched how that game kind of went on, and it certainly seemed like the physicality and the verbal altercations kind of picked up a little bit between Villardi and his ex-Kings teammates a little bit.
Well, what was interesting, and I don't know if you guys caught this, Russ, you're live at the game. You probably didn't, and I was watching the Winnipeg broadcast, and it happened in the. I don't remember now which period it happened. It was down to I was watching it to the left, and I think it was in the Kings' offensive zone. So it had to be either the first or the third period. And Lizotte had almost the exact same play that took down.
I did see that, yeah.
And I could see Lizotte as he was going by the Winnipeg bench. He caught an earful from, you could see it. And the announcers did say that
Lowry was giving him an earful. I watched that play. What had happened was Lizotte got cross-checked from behind. He's battling for a puck, and I don't know who he was battling with. And there's a player in front of him. He was battling with the puck, and he got kind of cross-checked from behind. Kind of went down, but as he went down, his stick went forward, and it pushed out the feet from underneath of the Winnipeg player. So I don't know if he meant to do that, but it seemed like kind of a fluky play. But the Jets, their bench just lit up right away when that happened.
That's what Villardi was talking about, kind of with what happened to him, that it was kind of one of those accidentally on purpose type of things. So, and only Lizotte knows that. And I think, Lizotte, in my opinion, has not at all shown to be any sort of dirty player. So, but I thought that was interesting that, off the heels of the comments that he made about Lizotte, that a very similar play happens with Lizotte, and Lizotte catches an earful on his way past the Winnipeg bench. So I'm sure that helps some things get heated up a little bit too.
I mean, a lot of the things that kind of happened, if you think about it, in the first period of the game, the first goal that the Kings scored, I mean, Bonus and Lowry were just absolutely up in arms thinking that Kempe got away with the cross-check in front. I didn't think it was anywhere near a cross-check. If you look at Sandberg, he wasn't even upset or even looked at the refs after the play happened. I thought he was more or less just kind of diving for a puck, and Kempe kind of gave him a little shove in the back at the same time that happened. So, but there's a lot of stuff that kind of emotionally got the Jets riled up a bit. And I mean, when you couple that with the Villardi thing, the PL trade, I mean, I'm sure maybe that you go into the first period intermission, Rick Bonus probably said a couple things, and then all of a sudden you see the team kind of coming out, lit a fire to them a little bit in the second period. But one thing I'll say is that what caught my eye, and I wish I had paid attention to this. Obviously, it's a little tougher because you can't foresee that this trade would happen and Villardi wouldn't be on this team. But I saw Matt Roy and Gabe Villardi really going at it, like in between, like during play. There's one play that happened in the Kings offensive zone. I think it was in the third period. Roy was behind the Kings net, just absolutely giving it to Villardi, just cross checks, hacks back behind the leg, and then it moved to the front of the net, kind of the same thing. And the puck wasn't even anywhere near those two players, so it's like you almost like wonder like how real close was that player to some of these players, and what was the relationship like with that? And obviously, we'll never know. They'll never really probably give us those answers. But I kind of wish I had paid attention to that a little bit more prior to that trade was made. But yeah, hats off to the way Villardi played.
I think you're right. It seemed a little like they got a little emotional because the standard for cross checks last night was pretty weak. So I think the fact that Villardi, I agree, it wasn't much there, or Kempe, I should say, there really wasn't much there with the Kempe play, but there wasn't much with either Schmidt play, and there wasn't much with the one either. It was really weird. So I guess like if I'm on that Winnipeg bench, you see Schmidt get pushed. All he did was push Lewis, and he goes down and gets a cross check, and then you see the same, more or less the same thing happen in front of the net. So I guess that's probably what made them lose their minds. And I don't know, but the Kings scored after that too, right? With Laferriere, with the fluke play. I mean, it almost looked like, for your Winnipeg, it's like, shit, if it's going to go wrong, it's going wrong tonight, apparently. And I mean, again, credit to them for sticking with it and turning things around in the second period.
And it's funny that I love that Trapper mentioned Roy's post-game interview, because I thought it was so ironic that he was the player that had to talk. And he's always such a mild-mannered, like soft-spoken kind of guy. And then the fact that he had those comments, and it was kind of like, it wasn't like a cheap shot or like even verbal jab at Villardi, but it was like, I think it was along the lines like, oh, he's entitled to his own opinions and we can disagree with him and stuff like that. But it's just funny to see a player like Matt Roy, when he just never really talks and is so soft-spoken, to have those kind of comments and be the one to be in front of the camera after I saw what had happened and transpired throughout the game.
Speaking of the media, is it weird that nobody wanted to talk to Dubois? How did that work?
The team
chooses.
The team chooses who's available.
Then that's well, let's get into that. That's weak. That's like, I mean, everybody wants.
How it's been.
Yeah, that's weak. That's weak though. I mean, if, the media wants to talk to PLD after the game, and I'm sure, and after the trade and everything like that, and he's got to own up to his poor play in that game. In my opinion, if the Kings are sheltering a veteran who's 20-something, mid-20s, who has been a top player on previous teams, was brought in, makes $8.5 million. If they sheltered him and didn't allow him for media availability, poor on the Kings. And I'll say it as a Kings podcast, that's BS, because he should answer. All media members want to talk to him after this trade. All media members want to be there and say, hey, like, this was a big game against your former team. Obviously you were trading this thing, and I understand the Kings not wanting to deal with that, but that's part of the game. That's part of the game. And Villardi got the better of him. Will that be the instance for the rest of their career? Maybe not, probably not. But he's got to be there to answer that. And if the Kings sheltered him, then pour on them.
No offense to Matt Roy. I don't need to hear from Matt Roy after that game. I want to hear from Todd McClellan. I want to hear from Andrzej Kopitar, Drew Doughty, and in this particular game especially, Pierre-Luc Dubois. I don't know. I don't know. Am I wrong?
It's ever since I've had the opportunity to kind of go and be the locker room after the games. It's always been, since I've been there, they'll choose the players that speak after wins or losses. It's always been that way. So, yeah, I mean, you could say, like, if you want to speak to a certain player and they don't provide that, I would agree 100%. I never felt after the game, I never really felt like I needed to speak with or needed to hear from Dubois. Like that's the thing too, is like, we might as well just get into the Dubois conversation. We're kind of tiptoeing around it anyway. But like if you think about it, like, if it wasn't the Jets, we would be talking about nothing.
Completely.
Dubois would have a point, and it'd be a no topic conversation. But the fact that Gabe Villardi has 4 points and he outplays the Kings and Dubois is on the other side, that's the only reason this is coming up. It's the only reason we're talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
I would disagree. I think this is the straw that broke the camel's back. And let's get into PLD here. I mean, obviously, we've been talking about the metrics and the zone entries and the slot assists and all this kind of stuff like that. But the fact is, he's not producing. He's just not in a real way. And is that his line mates? Is that what's going on? I don't know. But he got outproduced by the guy they traded for, in Gabriel Villardi, and for $5 million cheaper. So, I mean, there's got to be some sort of bell that's being answered here. Like, he's playing on the third line. He's not playing with Fiala, what we thought he would play. He's not a point per game player. He's not even a half point per game player. So there's got to be some sort of bell to be rung here. And I'll play the sentiment of the fans, because it's all over Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
It's just not good enough. And I don't care what advanced analytics you want to bring, Joe, because I know you're going to bring them all. He's not good enough right now. PLD is not good enough. Plain and simple. He's not. And I don't care who you're talking about with his line mates and shot percentages and all this kind of stuff. He should drive the line. And that was the whole point of him going down to the third line or having new line mates. He's going to drive these rookies. He's going to be the ownership of this line. He doesn't. And so where is his game here? Because and I know everybody wants to talk about his floating and all this kind of stuff. Kopitar floats. So like it's if he floats and he puts up points, nobody's going to care. But he doesn't put up points right now. So
Yeah.
Joe, I want to get to you this. Let me maybe stir this into an actual question for you.
Sure.
Is it recency bias in the fact that there's 4 points up for Villardi, or is there real concern with Pierre-Luc Dubois, the fact that we have an $8.5 million centerman playing third line minutes and not producing?
Well, it's funny that Russ said that because I had literally the exact same thought. Like if the Kings win this game, it's 2-0, right? If the Kings win this game 3-1, everybody's talking about how Dubois picks up a point. LaFerriere gets a fluke goal. Maybe that'll help get this line going. Good win for the Kings, and we're off and running. And we are not having this conversation at all. The only reason this is a topic is because Villardi had a good night, which I think I don't know why that's relevant to Pierre-Luc Dubois himself personally. I think it's, I'm not going to bring any, because I know nobody wants to hear about zone entries and slot passes. I'm not even going to bother going there, because I can totally agree that it's not been enough so far. And I think though, I don't know. I actually think his play with the puck is okay. I think when he has the puck on his stick, I think he's perfectly fine. He's a horse to the neutral zone. He's good in the offensive zone. He's creating plays. The issues with Dubois right now are away, when he doesn't have the puck on his stick, whether it's in the defensive zone or whether it's in the neutral zone. There's definitely some problems there where I don't know what it is, if he's if he's thinking too much, or if he's just not engaged or whatever it is. I can't say that before. But I think with the puck, I think he's fine. I think the stuff as far as production goes, I think a lot of that, not all of it, but I think a lot of that is less ice time, which Todd McClellan alluded to after the game. He's going to get less ice time here in Los Angeles than he was in Winnipeg. That is just a fact. The way they have their center depth, the way they're structured, that's how they're going to play it. He ain't playing, 19 minutes a night, 20 minutes a night like he did in Winnipeg. He's going to be playing, more often than not, 13, 15 minutes a night. That's just how it's going to be. So you're shaving minutes off his game. He's on the second power play unit. It's a different situation for Dubois than he was in Winnipeg. I do think the points are going to come. I think he's playing well enough with the puck that the points will come. But obviously the play away from the puck is where my concern is. And I guess at this point, I have to just trust that the coaching staff is going to be able to get the best out of him as they kind of go along through this season, as he continues to adapt to LA and the LA system. So I would agree, as somebody that was a fan of Dubois in the trade, is a fan of Dubois in the trade. I agree that he's to date not playing well enough.
So Russ, all the things that people were saying, and you and Joe were saying it's not an issue. The face-off percentage, him playing without the puck, the defensive skills, and all those things he alluded to that he needs to get better at and hasn't gotten better at so far. Is that an issue for you 20-something games into the season?
Not really. I agree with Joe where it's just not been good enough yet, or so far this season. I'm not going to say I wouldn't do the trade. Like that's horrible to say. I think this trade we're not going to see the actual returns of this deal until playoffs come around, because that's why this trade was made. You made this trade because last year in the playoffs, your third line center was Rasmus Kupari, and the Kings have no center after that in their organization. Quentin Byfield has moved to the wing. He's looked great on the wing. You don't want to move him to center yet, so you didn't want to go into another season with Rasmus Kupari as your third line center. So you go out and you get a 25-year-old center who's been a 60-point per game player in the NHL. You go out and grab him, even with the baggage, because you give him the money, he gets to pick where he wants to play, and everything looks good. So yeah, I do that trade 100 times over. Just that, I agree though, it just hasn't been good enough. And I'm also agree that I think with the puck, he's been outstanding. When the puck is on his stick, there's just no stopping him. He's a bull in a china shop. You try to take it from him, it's not going to happen. People try to hit him, they're just bouncing off of him like nothing. So it's the away from the puck stuff. It's the gliding. It's that kind of like lackadaisical skating that is so apparent on the ice and when you're watching the game that I think catches a lot of people's eyes. That when you've been watching a premier Hall of Fame level player like Anze Kopitar, who just constantly is around the puck, especially in the defensive zone, will swing down and help his defenders as a centerman should. You just don't really see that too much from Dubois, and that's where I want to see more of. I want to see him want the puck on his stick more, and that's something where I feel like has been really missing in his game. And I don't think it's an attitude problem. Like, I just saw him in the locker room today. He, like, everything seems fine. He's really close to a lot of players in the locker room, so I don't think there's anything with that. It's just, I don't know. I feel like there's an adjustment still, even though I don't know how much longer we can keep saying this since we're like 26 games into the season. So maybe you look at...
I'm at -3 games, by the way, Russ, for that.
I think at this point it's just kind of trying to figure out line mates that can play with Dubois. And I know it's an excuse, and you mentioned it could be a cop-out, but I feel like there's something to that. I feel like there's something to him playing with a rookie who's got a 6% shooting percentage. I feel like there's something to saying him playing with Carl Grundstrom, who is probably more or less just like a bottom six, so glorified fourth liner who's got a pretty good shot and throws his weight around. And then when you have those players that you're playing with at only 13 to 15 minutes a night, when just last year you were playing with players like Kyle Connor and Nikolai Ehlers and playing 18, 20 minutes a night on the first power play unit, I think you have a little bit of an excuse there. So I don't want to say
let me throw a boomerang back to you then, Russ.
Okay.
Shouldn't he be the most dominant player on that line then? If he's playing with a proverbial fourth liner and a rookie, shouldn't he outshine both those players on a consistent night in and night out basis?
I feel like he has been.
I think he kind of has.
Yeah, I mean, he's still. I mean, like I just mentioned, you have a shooting percentage with Alex Ferrier. As much as I love LaFerriere, of 6%. I mean, like there was one instance I saw in the game yesterday, and I'm watching it. Like, a lot of the focus obviously is on Dubois, and I'm watching him play, and it feels like he gains entry, gets the puck over to Grundstrom or LaFerriere, and it's just puck straight on net, shot immediately, get the line, shot on net, and you can kind of sense that maybe like Dubois kind of puts his head down, like, oh, he's trying to make a little bit more happen as opposed to just being such a direct line player. So I wonder if it's like maybe that kind of mindset is kind of getting into him a little bit, where it's like, oh man, you got me playing with these wingers that are so straight line, and I get it. Like there's you kind of need that in some players' games and some line, especially for maybe in the bottom six. But when you're a creative player like Dubois, who's been playing with such good talented wingers in his years, I wonder how much that would get to him, and I hope it doesn't, because you want him to continue to have a good attitude. I don't think it has, but I just wonder like how much of that has crept into his head a little bit.
That's exactly why.
So Joe, you wish he was with Trevor Moore, who was a straight line player, and Russ is saying that he's been with straight line players and it hasn't worked out. So why do you believe that maybe Trevor Moore is the answer? Is it just flip him and Danault and see if there's something that can spice up going forward, or how do you view his game with Trevor Moore, and how would that unlock it? Because
I think Trevor Moore is different than LaFerriere and Grundstrom. Yes, he can play a north-south game. He's got wheels on the wing. He likes to shoot the puck off the rush, but he's also somebody that is a creative player. Like, he's a really underrated. I think he's an underrated passer at this point. He's among the leaders in slot passes on the team, on the Kings, is Trevor Moore. He's in the top like 3 or 4, I think. So like, he's somebody that can make plays himself, where you're just not seeing that with Grundstrom and with LaFerriere. To Russell's point, it's just get across and shoot it, which like isn't necessarily a bad thing, but there's a little bit less of that second layer of creativity with those players that I think Trevor Moore would bring and would help Dubois. That's what I've been saying for a couple of weeks. I'd like to see Trevor Moore. And, I tweeted before the game, that line had played 87 minutes together, 57% shot attempts, 61% expected goals, 54% high danger chances, 1.9% shooting percentage as the trio. It's like, something's got to give
right
here.
There.
So, I get it. This stuff sounds like excuses. Okay, I guess it might, but I just think that again, I think when the puck is on his stick, he's perfectly fine. I think that it's away from the puck right now that he needs to get kind of sorted, and that's if and when that can change. Then I think we see another level. But again, I'm not second guessing the trade, the contract, whatever. Like this is a player in a year. Ask me in a year, and maybe I'll have a better idea. I mean, I want to see him in a full kind of run here, a playoff run. Another off season in LA where he's kind of totally settled, and that's he's here for 8, so we don't need to make a decision after 25. He's here for 8 years, so we gotta see it. I'm not.
I mean, people can't wait for the Cybertruck, Joe. They can't wait for PLD to last that long. So
there's no choice. He's not going anywhere.
I would come in here, SP. You've been lighting up the chat so far. Appreciate you coming in. I don't recognize you, but Deneau's a third line winger at best and a PKer. Obviously, they brought him in. He's played above his station, what we thought. And we thought that Pierre-Luc Dubois would take over that second line center role. Are they not giving him the keys to the kingdom? Is it just him not being able to play with those types of grinder type wingers, or is PLD the problem?
I think when you have such a reliable player like Deneau, I think it kind of pushes him up into that second line center conversation. I don't think it's just more or less just purely based off his offensive production, because that's not really what Deneau is, although he's kind of showed he can be. It's just that his chemistry with Moore and Fiala at times has elevated that line so much so that, I mean, Tom McClellan has just have to give him more minutes. That's just based off how their production, how well they've been playing. But I have another player that I'd like to see Dubois playing with besides Trevor Moore. I want to see him back with Kevin Fiala. I think when you have like all the good things that we saw with Dubois and Fiala, in preseason and training camp, I don't think that was a fluke. I think with Dubois is you're seeing a player that kind of likes to play off the puck a little bit, kind of like watching the play happen in front of him, and then when he gets the puck, he'll create a play himself. With Fiala, he's a player that wants the puck on his stick. He needs to have the puck, and he'll find players, whether it be cross-ice passes or backhand saucer passes. That's what Kevin Fiala is. He's a playmaker. So I want to see those two together again. And I feel like that would almost help Trevor Moore and Philip Deneau a little bit too. I feel like these last couple of games is like we've seen Moore and Deneau kind of getting to this like trying to do too much in their phase in their game, especially like in last night's game. Like we saw Phil Deneau just a terrible turnover that led to a goal the other way. And I just wonder like how much of that line is kind of missing that direct straight line player. Because I agree with Joe. Like I feel like Trevor Moore he's got a little bit more creativity than we give him credit for. Like I don't think he's the straight line player anymore. I think he used to be, but I feel like his play with Deneau has kind of turned him into this more creative player because they're making nice passes that turn into just really pretty goals. So I want to see Kaliev back with Deneau and Moore. You get a shooter again with those two players. Give him a straight line player. Kaliev has played some of the best hockey of his career with Philip Deneau and some of his underlying metrics. So that would help that player. And then when you have Fiala with Dubois, I feel like Fiala would almost kind of, I don't want to say drag Dubois around, but would kind of help him in terms of looking for those creative type of plays that maybe Dubois is missing a little bit playing with LaFerriere and Grunstrom. So
I want to piggyback off that.
Or you could just flip the centers. Just flip the centers.
No, I don't want to break up Deneau and Moore. I don't want to break up Deneau and Moore. I think that there's too much of a chemistry there with those two players.
But both those players are supposed to be they're irreplaceable. They can play with whoever. They're line drivers. So why can't you break them up?
I don't have a problem splitting them up. But I guess if McClellan doesn't want to, I'd like to go back to this, Russ, and kind of elaborate a little bit more because early in the season, it seemed like it wasn't clicking. And I'm looking back because I knew that Fiala was just not himself. And I tweeted back, and this was October 30th, that Kevin Fiala in 2022-23 for the season, he was over 15 shot attempts per 60 and nearly 16 shot assists per 60 for over 31 shot contributions per 60. In the start of the season in 23-24, his shot attempts was down to 12.5. His shot assists were down to 12.5, 7 less shot contributions. It just seemed like something was off. Fast forward to now, Fiala's shot attempts have gone from 12.5 per 60 to 17 per 60. So there's a noticeable difference in Fiala's game right now. He seems to have kind of he's back, like he found it. It seemed like he started slow. So
he's always been a slow starter in his game. Always.
So given that, like I wouldn't be opposed to kind of seeing if that's if because his shot attempts, or excuse me, his shot assists, his passing numbers are still definitely down, and Dubois' shot numbers we've talked about this before, are very much down. Where I wonder now if now would be a good time to reunite them. It seems like Fiala's got his game going again. Maybe he can be that player that, similar to what I was talking about with Moore, where yes, let Dubois carry the puck through the zone to the center of the ice. He makes the play to the left side to Kevin Fiala. He does his thing, and now maybe Dubois can kind of saunter into the high slot area. Fiala can make plays that way too. And to your point, with a shooter like Laferriere along their side. So if they're not going to put more there, I do think the opportunity is there to have Kevin Fiala play with him, and I think that would be I'd give that a shot.
I'd like to see Kaliyev with them as opposed to Laferriere. I wouldn't mind seeing Laferriere with Deneau and Moore. I'd kind of be curious to see how that would happen.
Yeah, I'm good with that too.
It's weird because I feel like this would be this little quick break it's just 2-day break that they have. I feel like this would have been a perfect opportunity for McClellan to kind of tinker with things a little bit. It's not like we're asking for the world, right? We're just like you're a team that's 16-6-4, going through a little bit of a slump. Like, I feel like this would have been a perfect time when you have teams like Seattle and San Jose coming up to maybe try new things out. But it was weird that McClellan even that mentioned that he wants to see this group kind of pull through it. And I don't know. I would have rather just gone through, maybe put everything in the blender, put Grunstrom back down on the fourth line.
Whoa, everything in the blender. A couple tweaks.
No, a couple tweaks. Like the first line, keep the way it is. I'm not touching that.
Okay.
I just maybe the last 3 lines, I'm maybe putting in the blender a little bit.
Not a full blender.
I would say full blender. Outside the first line, the bottom nine.
Well, I mean, when you say blender, that's 4 lines.
Okay, fine. I'm not former Titan here saying let's sign Phil Kessel and give PL a vet. I know the hot dog vendors in LA would love that after the game because their business would go up 400%. But I do think that he needs a legit scorer, and let's take it off of PLD, and I don't want to put it on a Rook because obviously PLD is making $8.5 million. He should have the blame on him. But is it time to move on from Laferriere? I mean, Fagemo is over almost a goal per game player in the AHL. He's had stints with the Kings to where he's shown productivity. Obviously, it didn't work out in Nashville for whatever reason. I don't follow the Predators. So is it time to give him a winger that's been proven to score goals? Obviously, they need a right-hander on the power play, and he's lighting up one-timers like Ovechkin in the AHL. So, where am I missing? Something needs to happen. And Joe, before you answer, mm-hmm. We all have had our moments where we have said, hey, Todd McClellan's not doing anything that needs to be done. He just sits there and waits. Now, he's made a lot of moves this year with adjustments at the half, adjustments with turning up line. So he's been a great coach this year. He's on line for being coach of the year. I get it. But his MO or his calling card has been doing nothing and hoping it turns out better. Is Laferriere that person you want to wait on? Is PLD that person you want to wait on? Or do they need a shot in the arm that is Samuel Fagemo?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not that down on Laferriere. I'm really not. And you're right, though. I mean, their production isn't where it needs to be. I just don't know that Fagemo. I don't think that's the play right now, because I feel like if you go to that, and it doesn't work, which it's entirely possible that it doesn't work. Because here's the thing with Fagemo on the power play. I don't think he's playing the left flank in the Kings power play because they've got Adrian Kempe on that flank. So in terms of needing a righty on that first power play, I don't think Fagemo's it. They need more of a playmaking right shot player on that first power play. I don't think that's Fagemo. So at least in my opinion. So I don't know. I'm not there. I'm still comfortable with Laferriere, Russ. I know I don't know where you're at on this, but I'm there. I think you believe McClellan was referring to Laferriere yesterday when he said he's doing a lot of things. Sometimes you got to look a little harder to see it. You know, some of the little things that you're doing, whether it's a wall battle, whether it's a back check, whether it's body positioning on a back check, or whether it's, winning a puck battle or a breakout on the wall and he's making the right play, things like that, dump ins that are appropriately placed where he can get it or his teammates can get it. So like he's probably doing a lot of those little things. And I'm okay with keeping him here. I mean, if you want to make the argument that maybe take a little pressure off him and move him down in the lineup a little bit and swap him and Kaliev, I can listen to that. But I don't know. I kind of like his game still. I really do. I think some of the stuff with the production with him, I think is as much to do with some puck luck as much as anything. I've kind of liked his game.
Yeah, I feel like the microscope is only on him because of the player he's playing with. That's the only reason. I feel like Laferriere at this point of his career probably would be better suited on the fourth line if you put him with a player like Lizotte and Trevor Lewis, and there's not the expectations kind of go down a lot more, and we wouldn't really be having this conversation. I'm not really there with Fagemo. I think it's a great story. I think he's playing really well in the AHL. Predators waived him for a reason, and they're not even close to as deep of a team as the Kings are. And I don't think Laferriere has gotten to the point where he's playing to lose games for the Kings. So that's why I say, like,
I'm tired of that. He's not losing games for the Kings. Like, he's not winning games for the Kings.
He's also a rookie. I mean, this is great experience for a player who's played really well in his first 20-plus games in the NHL.
Are the Kings are the Kings developing prospects, or are we trying to win a cup?
We're trying to win a cup, and they're winning. Okay. They're 16-6-4.
I just don't think Fagemo is that. I don't know. I hear you, Randon, especially because we're looking for some more production, and Fagemo's been producing quite a bit
but what's the harm? Laugh goes down. There's no waiver. He's waiver exempt, all that kind of stuff like that. You bring up Fagemo, give him a shot. Like what's the harm there? Like, I know, like, he's not Victor Arvidsson, and we're all hoping Victor Arvidsson comes back in February and he's the ad there, right?
Not holding.
But they're not waiving Trevor Lewis. They're not getting rid of him because everybody can be like, oh, well, let's bring up Fagemo and put Laferriere on the fourth line and sit Trevor Lewis. They're not doing that. Mm-hmm. So the only option is bringing up a guy and sitting Laferriere or dropping him down. And what's the harm? Like, you bring up him for 5 games, 10 games, and sit Laferriere or drop him down and see what's going on. But his stats in the AHL are nothing to be laughed at. Like, a goal per game is something that's a real stat. It's a real shine. And I just don't understand. And they need righties on the power play. If the Kings were not 16-6-2, everybody would be clamoring for Fagemo. But because they are winning games, everybody's afraid to bring him up. I just don't think that the team should be shy of making a change. And I get it. He won the spot out of camp. I get that. But it doesn't mean that there can't be tweaks. And maybe they need a guy who can light the lamp on fire. Hey, all your zone entries, all your slot assist stats, Joe, if he's putting those in net, that third line's buzzing. But Laferriere's not. So is there another guy that can?
It's fair. I said my piece. I kind of like Laffy's game, but there's nothing unfair about what you're saying. If Fagemo was getting the chances Laferriere was getting, maybe Fagemo buries a couple more. That's fair. Fair point. I
think Laferriere is a better player than Fagemo. That's just my opinion.
So do I.
So I think you're.
But I think the Brandon point, he may be more of a finisher. Maybe is Brandon saying that's what the Kings need on that line. Maybe is more
a different player. Okay,
Correct.
I can buy that.
I don't want to put words in Randon's mouth, but that's my impression.
It certainly seems that way because I mean, obviously, scoring it's nothing to ho hum about when you're scoring a goal per game in the second best league of hockey. So I get that part, but I don't know. I feel like Laferriere is a better player than Fagemo. I just think you just got to get him away from Dubois. I'd like to see
Russ. Would you have said that going into the season?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure
going into the season before you would have said I would take Laferriere over Fagemo.
Mm-hmm. I was a huge proponent of playing Laferriere.
I'm asking you just a direct question because I think that most people would have put Fagemo ahead of Laferriere on.
I think even the organization would have. The organization definitely would have until Laferriere outplayed him in training camp. I think that's. I mean, you go back to the rookie faceoff and some of the stuff I saw Laferriere doing and training camp and preseason. The organization saw it too, and they gave him that spot in the lineup for a good reason because he played so well. So, I mean, and that's why they waived Fagemo. I mean, I think it was the right decision at the time, and I still think it's the right decision to hold on to Laferriere over Fagemo. I'm not going to hold to it. Like if this kind of continues, I wouldn't be opposed to a switch. But I feel like for now, I just want to see him away from Dubois. I want to see because he's been playing with Dubois the whole season.
Yeah,
he's the only player that's stuck with him all year. So why don't we try him out with somebody else and see what happens there? Like I'd love to see Laferriere playing with Lazat. I feel like those two would be great together, especially playing on the fourth line when you're not really expected to do too much there. Maybe you have Grundstrom playing with Dubois and Fiala, then you get a little bit more of a grinder with a playmaker and a more of a power forward. And then you have Kaliyev playing with Deneau and Moore. There, that's my bottom 9. I would love to see that.
And I think a lot of this is Victor Arvidsson plays. Again, I'm not holding my breath here with Victor Arvidsson, but if reports are remotely true that he'll be back sometime around the trade deadline or slightly before, I mean that's huge. And I mean I totally agree, Randon or Russ, excuse me. Like if you. This won't happen, but if you had imagine having a Grundstrom, Lazat, and Laferriere line on that fourth line, holy crap, that would be fantastic. And then
but they're not sitting Lewis, so.
Right? And you've got your righty and Victor Arvidsson to play up in the lineup to play on the power play. But I mean, if not, I mean, I think I tweeted the other day, that it's still early, although it's mid-December now. The deadline's only, we're getting a little bit closer.
Over 2 months.
Yeah, what are the Kings' holes? Where do you fill? It's like, can you find a middle six kind of right shot forward to that's capable of playing the power play? I know that's a very specific, kind of player, but if Arvidsson is unable to return right now, that's top of list for me. And because they're giving Laferriere, he's given all the opportunity to now. He's playing a little bit of time on the second power play. So we'll see how that goes, but we'll see. I'm still. I'd rather, to Russ's point, kind of shuffle some things around a little bit with the lines, with maybe give Laferriere a different look before I make that move.
I know Arvidsson. He's been at the last couple of practices. He was at the practice today. He was actually standing on the bench watching practice take place.
I hope so.
I don't know if he's skating, so I mean his timetable is still up in the air. I view Arvidsson right now as like he's going to be this trade deadline acquisition for the Kings. That's how I view him.
I don't even care if he's there in February. I don't care if he's there in March. I care if he's there in April and May.
Yeah.
Because he is that late acquisition. He is the Mark Stone of the LA Kings for last year for Vegas, right? Like coming in last minute. Because if you can get a Grundstrom, PLD, Arvidsson, where you get that guy that can run amok and can shoot in Grundstrom, the guy that drives play, and the guy that can actually bury some shots outside of Laferriere, that line is lethal. Yeah. And so, like, I can see that. Or what we were talking about before, could you imagine what we talked about to start the season? Could you imagine a PLD, Fiala, and Victor Arvidsson type line? Like that line would run circles around most third lines, if not be a second line on this team. So, yeah, that's way down the line. And the Kings, by all recollection, should make the playoffs regardless of what's going on because they're a deep team. But I don't want to get into this complacency that hey, we're winning a lot of games. We're this amount of point percentage. We shouldn't ask for more from our team. If you're a cup contender, you should be asking more from your team. And I don't think what the Kings are giving in the last 3 games are enough. And I think they need to figure out the bottom 6 because they're not good enough at the moment.
I think you're right. Like you should be nitpicking every lineup. If you're that good of a team or expect to be that good of a team, then yes, you're 100% right, Brandon. And I don't think we should be results based. I don't think that the Kings, like, just because we're whatever doesn't mean, well, but if that's why we look at underlying numbers. That's why we look at things like that. Is like, is this for real, or is a player really struggling here, and this is going to be a problem that we need to figure out now before we start losing games, yada yada yada. I agree with that, but I think that the recent stretch is not anything of a concern. I don't like the blowing the 2-goal leads. That's a little un-Kings like. But you're right, Randon. I think you do need to be looking at these things constantly to see where are potential holes, where are potential issues, and address them before you go in a losing streak. Because if you can nip that in the bud ahead of time, then there you go.
I think Kings Rule wants a confirmation. Maybe Russell confirm or deny. Russell, have you seen RV around the rink skating or just around the rink?
I haven't seen him around skating. So he's just been around the rink. I think it's good that he's been around the rink at practice. He's kind of been wearing kind of like workout clothes. So I don't know if he's doing like rehab or what it is. That's what I would expect. They have like a rehab center right there. Like I see like Lonzo Ball going in there like all the time, which is kind of weird. But yeah, so they have like a rehab center. I'm sure that's where Arvidsson's kind of been around. I don't like speculate too much, but I would assume that's what he's been doing. So it's good to see him around the rink, but just to kind of emphasize the point, as we should be nitpicking, like I totally agree, Brandon, like we should be, especially with how well Edmonton is playing. I don't want to go into the playoffs having to start a playoff series on the road again. You have Vegas playing as well as they are. And so it looks like that division title is going to be a tough one to get. And you don't want to be the 3rd seed going into probably Edmonton or Vegas. You just don't want to be a 3rd seed, even though as well as the Kings have been playing on the road. So yeah, we should be continuing to nitpick because you don't want to be you want to keep on this losing slide or this rough patch of just playing poor games. I think you need to continue the winning stride and stay up in the standings.
And SB here, man, I know you're the first time in and appreciate you listening, but got to disagree with you more on this one. Can we dump the 1-3-1? That's their identity here. They clamp down. They suffocate teams when they have the lead. They check up ice when the 1-3-1's working. That top forward is checking down and clamping down, and they're doing well and they're suffocating teams. Last night they just got outplayed by Winnipeg. The first line flat out was the best line on the ice for the Winnipeg Jets, flat out. And we are asking fans and us ourselves to call in question top players that are getting paid a lot of money, like Pierre-Luc Dubois and all that kind of stuff, because that's what we do. That's what we're supposed to do. But the 1-3-1, I mean, that's the identity of the Kings, and there's been plenty. And ever since my co-hosts here have told me to listen to other broadcasts, I've been doing that every second period of every single game ever since then. And all of them have said, man, this 1-3-1, how do we break it? How do we do this? How do we all that kind of stuff? It's suffocating. It suffocates teams. When we have the lead, it's like running the football in the NFL because they can't get a breath because they dump the puck in, we flip it around, and we counterpunch. It's the Chuck Bell, it's the Niners, it's whatever you want to call. It's the counterpunch. They suffocate teams when we have the lead. We're not playing well. Yeah, I get it because we're not pushing the puck that way. But when we are playing well, we're suffocating teams and pushing the puck. And the 1-3-1, I get it. It's not flashy, but it wins hockey games, and it's been proven over the Kings' tenure that it wins hockey games.
Works.
It's 3 games. I mean, they're 6-3-1 in their last 10. So, like, I don't know.
Let's remember these conversations next week to see how
that's the thing.
they play.
Russ, 2 weeks ago, we're talking about cup contenders, and now it's like, well, what are we now? What is going on? It's like, that guy's not that big a deal. Like, he lost a couple games. Like, everybody happens to everybody.
Against good teams.
It happens. I don't want to hijack this. I want to go back to PLD for a second.
Let's go a little Con Air, man. Hijack it.
Well, because I'm a little like,
let's hear Nicolas Cage.
Put
that bunny down.
We can have a trade in sports where both teams get what they need. Both teams do well. Kevin Fiala, great example, Russ. Like,
if it wasn't Connor Bedard, Favor would win the fucking Calder. Sorry,
he's been good.
Expletives. He's been great.
Why does it have to be that because Gabe Villardi's playing so well and Dubois off to a slow start that this is like the Kings needed a center. If Gabe Villardi was a centerman, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Because
okay, John, I like this conversation. Let's go back to this, because I think what you're getting here, and I just want to set the tee so you can hit this 300-foot drive or 300-yard drive.
Ooh.
Right, Joe's about to pump this one down the fairway. We saw last playoffs with the center depth that we had was not good enough. Rasmus Kupari was not good enough.
No,
we got dominated down the middle of the ice. Everybody was saying, "Hey, we need a center. We need a center. We need a center." We were all saying that Edmonton had that advantage over us. So we get a center, a good center. Now, granted, people did maybe not like the capital. People not like the contract, but he is a good center in the National Hockey League. So let's play a hypothetical. What is our team on the third line if it's Villardi and no name and I follow versus PLD?
Kupari.
It's Kupari, who isn't even with a riddled injury team, he's scratched healthy.
He's hurt.
Well, he's hurt.
Is he hurt? Okay.
He's hurt.
Yeah. But even so, he has 1 point, I think, in 19 games.
So I'm just saying,
yeah,
like, this is the hypothetical that we're talking about. We still have holes on this team. We are still on this podcast figuring out how to fix the LA Kings if the lineup is the same.
And
so Joe,
yeah,
PLD,
yeah,
you were getting into it. You were about to hit this 300-yard drive. PLD, where foot drive? Sorry, I don't know your golf game.
No, it's 300 yards. I'm just laughing.
Yeah. This is just recency bias?
Yeah. So and I want to separate something, because yes, acknowledge production isn't there. He is not a perfect player right now, as we've talked about earlier. I think with the puck he's fine. Without the puck he's struggling right now. So he's not the perfect player, but Gabe Villardi was not a center in the National Hockey League. Not a good one. He's also not a center right now. He's playing the wing in Winnipeg. And as I like to say, you don't get moved off of center because you're too good for playing center. There's a reason for it. It's because you're not getting it done. And Villardi, I love Gabe Villardi. We're beating the drum for him 2 years ago, Randon, to be called up with the Reign, called up from the Reign to be a top 6 winger as an acquisition because he was playing so well in Ontario. He can't play center, at least not effectively, at least not yet, at least not at this level come playoff time. Pierre-Luc Dubois can. Okay, I agree his points are low right now, and his overall game needs to improve. But that was the nexus of the trade, right? Alex Iafallo, I'm sorry, love the guy, great guy, just very easily replaceable. Kupari's easily replaceable. To get a really good player like Dubois, you have to give a really good player like Gabe Villardi. Is Gabe Villardi a more productive player? I bet they're probably going to be pretty close over the course of like their careers. They're probably going to be relatively similar in points production. You know, I can see Gabe Villardi popping off for more points in some seasons. Gabe Villardi has so far shown to be a really good two-way winger too, which is very impressive. But like, he's not a center, and the Kings really need a center for now and the future. Now, I don't know if PLD is going to be a 1C in a couple of years when Kopitar's gone. You know, I don't know. That's a couple of years away. But the whole point of this all was there was a gaping hole at 3C that Gabe Villardi wasn't filling. Rasmus Kupari couldn't fill. I love Blake Lizotte, but he's 4C. So that's where PLD came into the discussion. Now, we could also get into like the speculation, but I really don't want to go here too much because it's speculation. I sure as hell don't know about did Gabe Villardi really want to be here and, the contract talk. So I don't know. I don't know anything about that, but he wasn't a center. And so that's what, if he was, he'd still be here. That's where it all comes back to, in my opinion. Like,
let's not forget he was given that chance. He was 2C for a copious amount of games. Yeah,
multiple times he was given that chance, and it wasn't working. And that's okay. He's a really good winger. Dare I say, a great winger. Like he's evolving into a top line winger. That's great to see because I think he's a really talented player. Kings have an abundance of wingers. So it's like I think they needed the centerman. So I think that's what makes the whole thing make sense for me. And I know there's comments in the chat. I can see them. And there's been stuff about, well, you could have just gotten a different center that was half the price. Okay. Well, you still are paying. You have to then sign Villardi. Well, so what's his contract? You have Alex Iafallo. Remember, you didn't trade him. It's $4 million. You got $1 million in Rasmus Kupari. There's all your Dubois money. So now what third line center are you going to go get? Ryan O'Reilly, who makes $4.5 million or $4 million. Where are you fitting him? And Ryan O'Reilly, he got a multi-year deal. So why would he turn down a multi-year 4x4 with Nashville for a 1 or 2 year deal with the Kings? Why would he do that? He's not. He's going to stay with Nashville. All of these examples that people give, it's fantasy. Come with a real example, and maybe there's actually discussion, but Ryan O'Reilly wasn't going to leave the money that Nashville gave him. What did he get? 1, 2, he got 4x4.5. Kings aren't signing him to 4x4.5, nor should they. So what are we talking about here? Like, it's a center. They needed a center. They struck.
Now SP is tickling at what you said. We would have got better switch.
I mean,
that's a different discussion. There you go. There you tickle
for the podcast.
Yeah,
SP is saying the Kings should have done the Jack Eichel trade, and we all
we're well aware of that. Yes, that's very. We're with you there, SP. So I don't mean to rant there, Russ. Russ, or you can take it from here.
I mean, I ranted, you ranted. Hey,
I love it.
We need a rant by Russ here. So.
No, I mean, you guys did all the ranting for me. I'll just say it. It's turning into a 1-for-1 trade. That's all it is. And it's a trade that for a position of need that the Kings needed. They traded from a position of strength in terms of the wingers that they had. And then a young center in Rasmus Kupari. Rasmus Kupari has like 1 point in however many games. Alex Iafallo started off really, really hot. And now he's turned into Alex Iafallo, where he has like no points in his last like 7 games or something like that. Like I saw like a Winnipeg writer tweet that, and he was like, "I don't know what's wrong with Alex Iafallo." I was like, "Yeah, I know what's wrong with him. He's turning into Alex Iafallo." So there's that. But yeah, with Gabe Villardi, it's a one. If you think about it, it's a 1-for-1 trade, and the Kings needed a center. So Joe beat that horse to the ground, and I think it's going to work out for the Kings in the long run. And with Villardi, I mean, we have to talk about he's injury prone too. So.
He's already missed this year.
He's already missed a ton of games, and it's kind of a fluke injury, and I want to put that on him, but it's a label that he's going to have to shed at some point. 25-year-old centers built the way that Pierre-Luc Dubois are built don't just grow on trees. No. They're not available. When they're available, you have to go out and try to get them. So, I mean, when you see him walking around the locker room and the how jacked he is, I mean, it's like, man, like he's a just empowering force that I can imagine just is on. It's the only thing I'd say is like, I just want him to be emotionally invested in the game. I feel like there's times where we just haven't seen that snarl to his game come out a little bit. It's like I wonder, like if you can get like Laferriere and Grundstrom aren't emotional players on the ice. They're not going to get into like scrums or anything like that. I almost want to see a player kind of pull Dubois a little bit more, kind of get in.
Was it the Ranger game?
Which I think Victor Arvidsson is that type of guy. He's very emotional on the ice.
Yeah, but I don't know if he'll be able to like start like scrums or get in the face of people. Like so I'm just gonna say right now, I was gonna save it. Maybe I'm a little early on this, but I almost wonder like what would a trade for like I know I'm speaking trades and these are all hypotheticals. We're playing fantasy, we're fans, we like to have fun. Let's have some fun. I would love to see him play with like a Nick Foligno. Like I know they played together in Columbus. Nick Foligno's in Chicago. He's on a 1-year deal, like $4 million UFA after the year. But if you get a winger like that to play with Dubois, who's kind of just going to pull him into those emotional kind of fights and scrums a little bit, I'm just curious to see how that would happen, because I feel like we're missing that part of Dubois' game that I was so excited about when he first came over here. That those like after the whistle scrums, those face washes that we just really haven't seen too much of so far in the early parts in LA. And
I guess I would just like to go back to the fact that I don't know why it matters that Villardi's good. Good. Yeah, exactly. It's fine. Like, it's okay. Like, I think people see every trade that's made, and you just have to make out like a bandit on every trade. It's like this. Why?
But I feel like Kings fans feel like we lost the trade by a lot.
I mean,
why? But that's how they feel. That's what Twitter is about. And we are a podcast for the fans by the fans, because we are all fans. And that's how they feel. And I think I'm going to end it on this, because we are almost on 2 hours here.
Kind of knew this one would be a long one.
And I said this when the trade happened, even when in my agitated state, I said this: if the trade works out on our end, who cares what the other end is like? And that's what Joe's saying. Mm-hmm. If PLD works out for the Kings, which so far he has not, but if he does, then who cares what Gabe Villardi turns out to be, because we got what we needed.
Right.
And that's what we'll see going on the rest of the season. Will this turn around for Pierre-Luc Dubois? Will it turn around for LaFerriere? Will Tonka be able to ignite that line? Is it a Victor Arvidsson February matchup where it's a tinderbox? We don't know. That's what we're here to see. We want to see the Kings play well, and we're fans, and we love it. We love this debate here. Fans love this debate. We could go probably another hour of hypotheticals, but whether you're listening to this on the 405 in LA or right now, we don't have the time. So I appreciate you guys for coming here. The chat was buzzing. You guys were going back and forth, and I appreciate the debate. Get your hockey shirts. Go on to order them at contact@hockeyroyalty.com. And Russ will get you squared away, $30 for size shirts, small through extra large. We are working on new shirts down the pipeline for all you 2XL, 3XL people. We got some shirts coming down the line for you guys. Really appreciate you guys again in the chat. All new articles coming out. Russ, you had a great interview with the skating coach for Byfield, so keep an eye out for that article coming out, as well as all the stuff for the Reign with Kyle. You can follow us at hockey_royalty, at randomcommando24, at JW Paterino, at NHL Russell. Great pod, guys. Good to be back. Joe, glorious as ever, man. I miss you, man. I miss you. It was good having you back. So
glad to be back.
All right. Well, as always on this podcast, go Kings, go.